Prakash, can we start?
Sure, Bhagavan. Yes. Namaste, everyone. Welcome to Advaita Vedanta Satsang House. The ongoing sessions are on Bhagavad Gita, offered by Bindoji from an Advaita perspective. We are on Chapter 3, room number 18. All the other previous rooms are available as replays in Clubhouse, or you can go to the listed channels in chat. One is a YouTube channel called Advaita Retold. The other two are Apple Podcast and Spotify, where you can access these talks. There is also a book that was published recently called The Imaginary Door, penned by Artemisia, based on Bindoji's insights on Advaita. And for housekeeping, I've already closed the hand raising. The chat I will close, and when Bindoji is talking, we'll have that closed. And once Bindoji is done, in about an hour, we'll open the channels if you have any questions or clarifications. As always, thank you, Bindoji. Over to you.
Thank you, Prakash. Hari Om and welcome to all of you. My invocations. Namo Brahmadibhyo Varma Vidya Sampradaya Karatrubhyo Vamsha Rishibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyaha Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashagritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Guru Ratmiti Murtibeda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The Gita Dhyana Slokam. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Spunvandya Divyai Vedai Sangapadakromo Panishadai Gayanti Yam Samaga Dhyanavastita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yogino Yasyandam Navidussura Suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. In the last class, we saw Arjuna asking a question. Atha kena prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha. Anichanyapi varsneya baladiva niyojita. As if compelled by some force, why do people opt for doing actions which incur sin? This is what we discussed in the last class. So, Krishna is now answering to Arjuna's very question. Shrunu, listen to what is the answer. It is the desire that is kama, arising from Rajoguna, the great enemy of the seeker. That is what the answer from Krishna is coming, which we will discuss in detail. Sri Bhagavan Vacha Kama Yesha Krodha Yesha Rajoguna Samudbhavaha Mahashano Mahapapma Vidyanena Vairinam Vidhi Iha Enamiham Vairinam. So, Esha Kamaha, Esha Krodha, Rajoguna Samudbhavaha. Esha Kamaha, this Kama. Atha, what is this? Is Arjuna's question. This is Kama, is the answer from Krishna. This is Krodha. Rajoguna Samudbhava, arising from the guna of Rajas. Therefore, the identification of the force, Kena Prayuktoyam, It was the question which was asked in 36 is being answered by Krishna as Kama and Krodha, and both being arising from the guna of Rajas. Then he is giving the description of that. Mahasanaha Mahapapma Enam Iha Vairinam Vidhi. The great devourer of the great sinfulness. Know this one to be the enemy here. The characterization and the injunction to recognize that. So, identification of what is the enemies as Kama, Esha and Krodha. Their origin is being mentioned as Rajoguna Samudbhava. And what are their characteristics? Mahasanaha Mapapapma. And this is what you should know. Vidhi Enam Vairinam. Know this too. So Kama Esha means this is desire. This is this Kama. This force you asked about, which is compelling everyone to act even though the path is sinful, is Kama. By what is the person compelled was the question by Arjuna. And Krishna answers with an emphatic demonstration that this is Kama. He is very affirmative in his and emphatic on the answer. Kama Ichha Vishayeshu Pritihi. Kama is the desire or attachment to objects, delight in Vishayas. So, in one earlier verse, we saw that sense organs and sense objects and the contact of these two are the one which is creating Raga and Dvesha. Now, here Bhagavan is saying Kama and Krodha. What is the connection between the Raga and Dvesha with Kama and Krodha? We will analyze them very detailed because we should understand where these are applicable. So, in simple mean, Kama is Ichha Vishaya Priti, that is attachment to objects or delight in the Vishayas, objects. But the Advaitic frame of Kama is the concentrated expression of Raga. So, Kama and Raga are connected. It is a specific Andakarana Vikara that arises when avidya projects fullness onto external objects, drives the jiva to pursue them compulsively. So we know that raga is natural, where the senses come in contact with the sense object, the raga is inevitable. Because that is the nature of guna or swabhava. But what happens is that there is an andakarana vikara, or a modification of the inner instrument. That becomes concentrated expression of the raga. Raga is a natural thing because of the contact between senses and sense object. But when it reaches the andakarana, that is the mind, body, mind, manobuddhi ahankara. When it reaches that, it takes a different form like kama, a desire. Raga is different, desire is different. So when we look at it from the Advaitic point of view, the identification of the cause by Krishna, the Nimitta Karana for all Papa, is Kama. Because that is due to avidya. Avidya, or the lack of knowledge. By not understanding that the raga and dvesha which is happening as a natural happening when the sense objects and the senses are in contact should not develop into an attraction to such a state where it becomes a deep desire within us. This deep desire is a product of avidya, or the ignorance, for not understanding the nature of things. And that is the time when the kama, or the deep desire, takes the control of the individual. What is krodha then? Krodha is anger, wrath, or rage. So Krishna says this is krodha. These are the two things, kama and krodha. Krodha is not separate cause, but kama in its frustrated form. Kama is the initial stage. When it is not being achieved its expected result, it creates some sort of a frustration in us. And that frustration, or the obstruction of kama's fulfilling, when it happens, krodha, anger, takes place. Therefore, kama, when obstructed, becomes krodha. The sequence is like this. Kama comes first. When obstruction takes place, krodha happens, and krodha, we react with anger, and that is creating the papa. So Krishna identifies both in the same breath because ontologically they are one. Krodha is frustrated kama, kama is a potential krodha. Shankaracharya notes that Krishna mentions krodha specifically here because it is krodha that most dramatically exemplifies the balad iva niyojitaha, the force with which we are, become helpless and commit sin is due to the anger. A person seized by the krodha or anger is most visibly and completely overpowered, acting in ways he would never rationally choose to be. So, both kama and krodha are now to be understood as rajoguna samudbhava, arising completely from rajoguna. That which arises or born completely of rajas. Rajas gunat samyak udbhavati iti rajoguna samudbhava. That which arises fully from the quality of rajas is rajoguna samudbhava. Because the kama within the framework of guna theory is established earlier in this chapter itself. Rajas is the guna of activity, passion, restlessness, desire, etc. Kama is its concentrated expression in the antakarana. Shankaracharya connects this to the earlier verse 27. Prakritehe gunaihi karmani sarvashaha kriyamanani. Kama is the specific guna vikara, modification of guna, through which the rajas drives the jiva to papacharana, or doing the sins. The identification of rajoguna samudvava also implicitly locates kama firmly in prakriti and not in atman. It is not the swabhava of atman. It is in the antakarana. Since atman is nirguna, free from all gunas, kama cannot be at the level of atman. It is anatma. The modification of prakriti superimposed upon atman through avidya and adhyasa. Now Krishna uses some adjectives to indicate these two. Mahashanaha. Maha means great or immense. Asana means eating, consuming, devouring. So, one who eats greatly, or the one who was a great devourer, or the insatiable consumption, is what is indicated by Mahasana. Mahat asanam bhakshanam yasya saha. Mahasanaha. He whose eating or devouring capability is great, he is Mahasana. So Kama and Krodha is what is indicated here by that. The insatiability of Kama is the most distinctive characteristic of it. In the explanation or the commentary, Shankaracharya makes it. It is the image of an all-consuming fire. Analaha. Analasya Mahasanata. The more fuel you add, the more it burns. Kama is like that. It is not a desire that can be satisfied by obtaining the objects, but the one that grows with each time you satisfy it. Shankaracharya connects this to the Upanishadic analysis. Na jatu kama kamanam upabhogena samyati. It's the Manusmriti. Desire is never appeased by enjoyment of the desired objects. Therefore, the Mahasana nature of Kama explains its function as Baladiva or Balavat, overwhelming force described in the question of Arjuna, Baladiva Niyojita. The insatiable devourer can never be satisfied, therefore never ceases its compulsion in satisfaction. So insatiable. Mahapapma is the next adjective which Krishna uses it. Great evil or great sin. Mahapapma dosha yasya saha. The producer of great evil. Mahapapma identifies Kama as the root source for all papa. Not merely an occasional cause of sin, but the fundamental sin producer. Shankaracharya says that Mahapapma as the Sarva Papa Moolam. It is the root of all sins. The connection to Arjuna's question is direct. Why do people go towards sinful means? Papam charati purushaha. Because Mahapapma Kama is the answer given by Krishna. He who himself continuously sinful generates great papa wherever he operates. It is not a simple papakari, one who occasionally causes papa, but is an eternal concentrated form of Kama as papa itself, not merely a cause of papa. So this is what Arjuna is being told by Krishna as Vidhi enam iha vairinam. Know these here, in this life, in this world, or in this very moment, in this domain of human experience. Vairinam means the adversary or the foe. Know this one to be the enemy here, the karma and the root of the cause for papa. So Shankaracharya's commentary is also in the similar line. The force that drives papa against all will is karma. And karma operates through krodha when obstructed. The karma krodha sequence of what is we studied in the second chapter, 62 and 63 verse. Yayato vishayan pumsa sangasteshu vajayate. Sangat samjayate kama, kamat krodho vijayate. Krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammoha smritibhramshavam. Smritibhramshat buddhinasho, buddhinashat pranashyati. That compelling objects, attachment arises, and from attachment, karma. From karma, krodha is what Krishna has said in the second chapter. Now this statement from Krishna, kama yesha, krodha yesha, in this 37th verse, are not two separate forces but one force in two phases. The desire as kama and the frustrated desire becomes the krodha. Rajoguna samudbhava, by locating kama firmly in rajas, one of the three gunas of the prakriti, sattva, rajas, tamas, Krishna simultaneously establishes two crucial points. Kama is anatma. It belongs to the prakriti, not atman. And kama is therefore vikarya, subject to modification and ultimately removable. So please understand that it is not, even if it is part of the prakriti, it is being a vikara or a modification, it can be ultimately removed. Through the same guna transcendence, that sattvika discipline and ultimately jnana which produces that. Therefore, Shankaracharya reads Rajoguna Samudbhava both as both an analysis of karma in the Rajasa origin and implicit prescription that Rajasa tendencies are overcome by Sattvika sadhana and ultimately dissolved by Atmajnana. So we need not worry about it as long as it is powerful, able to devour us with its power. But the more we become Sattvika through sadhana and the jnana, Atmajnana, when it happens, this can be dissolved. Even the word Mahashana is commented extensively by Shankaracharya in his commentary. Why Kama functions Balavat is overpowering is Kama is insatiable precisely because it is directed towards the finite objects in pursuit of infinite satisfaction. A structural impossibility that with a finite object trying to achieve infinite satisfaction. Jiva experiences Ananda as its own nature because Atma is Ananda Swarupa. But projects this Ananda onto external objects due to avidya and pursues them with infinite intensity. Since the finite objects can never yield the infinite satisfaction that the Atman Ananda alone can provide, Kama is constitutively a Mahashana. Its hunger can never be satisfied because it is pursuing a wrong object. Therefore, Shankaracharya says that this is as a pointing only a genuine resolution is only Atmajnana, which alone reveals Ananda as one's own nature, thereby dissolves the Kama at the very root of it. Then the instruction from Krishna as Vairinam Vidhi. It's Shankaracharya says that it's both a psychological and soteriological instruction from Krishna. Psychological instruction is recognize Kama as the enemy rather than a friend or as oneself. The ordinary Ajnanin identifies with Kama that I desire this. I love to do this. I love it. That's why I'm doing it. All these expressions are from that. And thereby empowers the Tattvavit and empowers it with it. Whereas the Tattvavit recognizes Kama as Anatma, as an enemy operating within the Andakarana, but not belonging to himself, Atman. This recognition alone brings beings to dissolve Kama's power. Shankaracharya reads Vidhi as the first step of Kama Nirasana, or removal of Kama. The recognition that Kama is a vairi or an enemy, and it is not the nature of Atman, Ananda Swarupa, is itself a form of Viveka that initiates the process of liberation from its compulsion. Now the subsequent verses from 38 to the end of the chapter 43 will elaborate the method of recognizing Kama's hiding places. Which are they? Indriya Mano Buddhi. So, understanding its obstructing function and progressively purifying the faculties through disciplined jnana until Kama is destroyed at its roots in the Andhyakarana. So the passage, the commentary is slightly long because Shankaracharya is quoting from Vishnu Purana first. Aishwaryasya samagrasya dharmasya shasya yasasaha shriyaha vairagyasya atha mokshasya shannam bhagaha iti angana. The word bhaga, is from which we get the word Bhagavan, denotes 6 qualities: complete sovereignty, righteousness, fame, prosperity, dispassion, and liberation. Therefore, these qualities exist in fullness without any limitation in Ishvara or Vasudeva. Therefore, he is called Bhagavan. Then he is also quoting another verse from same Vishnu Purana again. Utpattim pralayam chaiva bhutanganam agatim vigatim veti vidyam avidyam cha savachyo Bhagavan iti. He who knows the creation and dissolution of beings, their coming and going, and both knowledge and ignorance, such a person or he is called the Bhagavan. Therefore, Bhagavan is characterized by omniscience, knowledge of cosmic process, knowledge of liberation and bondage. Therefore, Shankaracharya says that Krishna is a Bhagavan. The enemy called desire, Kama Esha Sarva Loka Shatru. He calls Sarva Loka Shatru, enemy of all beings. Because desire is a universal enemy because of it drives beings towards suffering. Because it can never be satisfied. So, the suffering increases only. It produces countless misfortune. In the attempt to achieve the Kama, we incur a lot of misfortunes. Thus, desire is not merely personal, it is a cosmic in scope. Yen nimitta sarvanartha prapti praninam. Because of it, all misfortunes arise for living beings. It originates as craving, insatiable desire, and which becomes the root cause of samsara. Sa yesha kama pratihitaha kenachit krodatvena parinamate. When this desire is obstructed, it transforms into anger. That is the process, psychological process of desire. When it arises and then it is obstructed, the anger appears. Thus, krodha or the anger is merely a frustrated desire. Therefore, the whole kama and the krodha, api esha eva rajoguna samudbhava. It arises from rajoguna. The rajas produces agitation and carving. Desire arises from rajas. And anger arises when desire fails. Thus, both belongs to rajoguna. Kama rajoguna samudbhava is that restlessness, craving, impulsive action. All these are naturally happening when rajas is dominated in the mind. Kamo hi udbhutaha rajaha pravartayan purusham pravartayati. When the rajas arises in the form of a desire, kama, it impels a person into action. So desire becomes the driving force behind human activity. Thus, many actions arise not from reason, but from compulsion of craving. Krishnaya hi aham karita. I was driven by the craving, or I am attracted, I love it, or it's my desire to have it, or desire to do it. All those statements are the illustration of Krishna or desire. Or people say desire made me to do it. This common confession revealed the true motive behind many attractions. Mahashanaha, the great devourer. Ashana means consumption or eating or satisfaction. So the insatiable nature of kama is what is being explained. It is also Mahapapma, great sinner. Desire arising out of this kama, forcing us to do wrongdoings. Kamena hi preritaha jandu prapam karoti. Driven by this desire, we commit sins. Ataha vidhi enam kamam iha samsare vairinam. Therefore, Arjuna, know this desire to be the enemy in this world. Among all obstacles in the spiritual path, kama is the greatest enemy. It disturbs the mind, generates anger, leads to sinful action, and obstructs the knowledge and takes us away from the path of the spiritual goal. Thus, the seeker must recognize and conquer the enemy. So, recognition of the kama is the most important point. You can conquer the enemy only if you recognize it. In the coming verses, you will see how Shankaracharya is including so many things which we thought that they are pure and perfect, purposeful. So, in the desire arising from the ignorance of the self, the ignorance produces identification with the body and the mind. And that identification generates the craving. And therefore, the liberation requires removal of this kama through knowledge. Katham vairi iti drishtandam pratyayati. Now, Krishna is giving examples how the desire is with similes from our ordinary life. Dhumen avriyate vannir yada darsha adarsho malena cha yado belena vrteo garbhastha tada tena damavrutam. Tena idam avrutam. There are triple analogy which Krishna is saying, yada tada. Yada dhumena vanni avriyate. Just as a fire is hidden in a smoke, a thick black cloud of smoke will not make us feel the presence of the fire, which is burning, but we can't see the burning fire because of the cloud or the thick smoke. Yada malena cha adarshaha avriyate. Just as a mirror is covered by dust, the mirror is by nature it's pure and it has potency to reflect. But the dust accumulated on it does not allow us to see with clarity our own face. Yada ulbena garbhaha avrata asti. Just as an embryo is enclosed by the membrane. So this is the third example which he is saying. Tada, like that, tena idam avrutam. So this knowledge is also covered by that kama. So kama is covering that jnana. Dhumena, covered by the smoke. Avriyate is covered. Vannihi is the fire or the flame. The flame is covered by the smoke. Similarly, mirror by the dust and the yada ubalena, the embryo covering that, it is not merely the surface covering, but total envelopment from all sides. The most complete and intimate form of covering. The embryo is entirely enclosed with no gap. This is the strongest of the three analogies and is positioned last for rhetorical climax. So, the examples given, each one, the first of the three, not randomly chosen, but it is represent the graded series of covering, avarana types that Shankaracharya reads as a philosophically distinct. The smoke and the vanni analogy represent the sahaja avarana, a natural, inseparable covering arising from the same source. As covered, kama and jiva are anadis sahabhavin. They co-present from the beginningless of time. Just as smoke is inseparable from the combustion, that is fire's own nature. The mala adarsha analogy, or the dirt and the mirror, agantuka avarana, advantageous covering that accumulates from outside. Karma mala is sakama karma, accumulates over time and increasingly obscures the antakarana's reflective capability. That is accumulated through karma done due to sakama, not as a yajnartha. And the membrane and the embryo, sarva akasha avarana, is the totally deluded, mudha, like a total complete encompassing of covering that leaves no gap. This represents the condition of the mudha. or the deluded one, in whom Kama has completely enveloped and has no desire or no inclination or no knowledge or whatsoever outside what is the situation, because this is covering him entirely. So he doesn't know even as the spiritual path exists by which he can get out of this delusion. Shankaracharya then further says that the 3 degrees of Avarana, due to 3 levels of the Adhikaris. The Dhuma analogy applies to Jitnyasu, in whom Jnana exists, Vanni representing the burning, but is partially obscured by Kama. Like the fire that can be seen through the thin smoke, this person is on the path and needs only a fan to flame off the smoke for the fire to burn and Viveka to arise out of it. The dirt analogy applies to Karma Yogin, in whom the Andakarana is like a tarnished mirror. Reflective capacity exists, but it is covered by the Karma Mala. This person needs Karma Yoga sadhana to polish the mirror. And the final analogy of membrane and the embryo applies to Mudha Avidwan, like the embryo, completely enclosed in Kama Avidya, with no aperture through which Jnana can enter. This person needs Shravana and Vividisha, desire to know also, to be born from the enclosure, from within. It cannot be given from outside, because he will not attend to listen to anybody else. He is all the time engrossed like a what you call a worm in a cow dung. It cannot come out of. If it feels if it comes out, it will die. That is the condition of the person. That is the same thing which embryo is engulfed in that membrane example. Tena idam avritam. By this, the jnana is covered, or the Shankaracharya specific mechanism through which Kama functions as enemy. Kama destroys not by direct attack, like a sword, but a concealment, avarna. It hides jnana that would dissolve it. The most dangerous enemy is the one who blinds you to his own presence. The Kama does this precisely by covering jnana. It prevents the viveka that would recognize and overcome it. You might have seen that some people behave as if they are the closest friends or the closest possible, trying to keep away the person from knowing the truth. Thereby, that friend is the ulterior motive to benefit out of the friendship. But the person who is ignorant about the motives of the friend is the loser. So the karma is like that. It's a supreme strategy, and the reason it is mahapapma, or its sinfulness, is not merely in the papa it derives, but the jnana avarana through which it perpetuates samsara indefinitely. Only when then you are in samsara, the karma can get, more and more fuel to the fire. Shankaracharya explained this verse as psychological foundation for practical instruction that will follow from the next verse, 39 to 41. Having identified Kama as enemy and explained as Avarana Shakti of that, Krishna will now locate Kama's specific dwelling places in the hierarchy of faculties, Indriya, Mana, Buddhi, in the 40th verse, next verse, and prescribe practical method of overcoming it by progressively disciplining each faculty from the grossest, that is the indriyas, to the subtlest, the buddhi. The sadhana of removing avarana is the core practical teaching of the chapter's conclusion. Dhumena sahaja avrayena. That is, dhumena sahajena avriyate vanni prakashatmakaha aprakashatmakena. The fire whose natural nature of luminosity is covered by smoke. So here, the meaning is that this represents a mild obstruction of knowledge. Mind still possesses clarity, but desires create disturbances. Such a condition belongs to a person whose mind is predominantly sattvic in nature, where ignorance only lightly covers the understanding. Yadava adarshe malenacha. Then the next one is representing of stronger obstruction of knowledge because of attachment, desires and habitual tendencies. Here rajas is predominant and knowledge becomes significantly obscured. Then ulbena cha jarayuna, the embryo example, is completely hidden, cannot be seen, symbolizes the complete obstruction of knowledge. It is dominated by tamas. Knowledge is entirely covered by ignorance and desire. So this is the metaphor which is being, three metaphors given by the same. So the knowledge of the self is inherently present because it is self-luminous in nature. Yet it appears to be hidden due to desire, attachment and ignorance. When these coverings are removed through knowledge, by discipline, purification and knowledge, the self shines by itself. So prakashata. Then the 39th verse. Kim punastat idam shabdavachyam yat kamen avritam iti uchyate avritam jnanametena jnanino nityavairina kamarupena kaundeya dushpuranenanalena cha. O Arjuna, by this, the eternal enemy, taking the form of kama, insatiable and like a ever-hungry fire, the knowledge of jnanin is covered. The 5 qualifiers for the kama is given is etena nityavairinaha kamarupena dushpuranena analena. These are the words, adjective words used for kama in this verse. As in the previous one, avritam means covered. Jnanam is avritam, covered. So jnanam as encompassing also preparatory knowledge includes viveka, vairagya, samadhama. All the cognitive and discriminative capacities that lead us towards atma-jnana is what is being covered. By etena means by this very kama. Of jnaninaha, of the jnanin who is there. Shankaracharya notes they indicate that the kama is dangerous precisely to the mumukshu and sadhaka, not merely to ajnani, whose jnana is not yet even oriented towards Atman, but to the one who is on the path, but at the same time he has not oriented towards Atman. Kama is the most dangerous as an enemy when it attacks those who are closest to defeating it. So it is very powerful. So the more you try to defeat it by quenching it, the more will be the fire. Therefore, it is called Nitya Vairina. Nitya Vairi means a perpetual enemy by the eternal adversary or the constant foe. Anadi Kala Pravarta, operating from beginningless time, because we do not know when we were ignorant. That is the time when the karma is also operating in us. So, along with us, the karma is also there with us. Therefore, it is called Nitya Vairi. It never stops. It never relents. And it never tires. It is present in every birth, every circumstance, every moment. The Shankaracharya connects Nitya Vairi to Anadi, nature of avidya itself. Kama is Nitya Vairin because it is rooted in Anadi Avidya, which itself is Nitya until dissolved by the Jnana. So, what are the forms? Kama Rupena. By that which has the form of Kama. And Kama in its various forms and appearances. Shankaracharya says that Kama Rupam Akaraha Yasya Saha Kama Rupaha. Tena. That whose form or appearance is Kama, by that. The compound Kama Rupa is philosophically important. It indicates that Kama is not a single, easily identifiable force, but it takes many forms, Rupani. Shankaracharya says that Kama Rupena as Aneka Rupa Kamena, manifold forms of Kama, pointing to the various shape-fitting nature of Kama, which makes it so difficult to recognize and overcome. Kama appears, listen, very important, Shankaracharya's identification of them. Kama appears as Dharma Ichcha, desire to be the righteous conduct. As Jitnyasa, desire for knowledge, is also Kama. As Sneha, as an affection. As Bhakti, devotion. In every case, subtly binding the jiva through apparently legitimate desires. See, all these desires which Shankaracharya mentioned here, we feel that it is not Kama. Therefore, we feel like perpetually engaging in them. One is the desire for righteous conduct. So we say that righteous conduct is not the form of Kama. Therefore, we should be always righteous and doing that. And we will be driven towards the action for righteous karma. But that is also Kama only. To do righteous actions is a Kama. Jitnyasa, desire for knowledge. In the case of desire for knowledge, people spend their entire lifetime by reading hundreds and thousands of books, attending hundreds and thousands of lectures, going through analytical, Srishtivada, Drishtivada, Ajadivada, all the Vadas and everything. We think that it is a desire for knowledge. Even that is a subtle form of Kama. Then we say love, affection, or kindness, which we show to others. So Kama is, and then lastly he adds, Bhakti, as even devotion, is Kama. Because we can never get out of devotion. Anything which we cannot put a full stop is a form of Kama. Please understand that. In every case, subtly binding the jiva through apparently legitimate desires. Just as a fire is not always visibly obvious under heavy smoke, Kama is not always recognizable in various forms. That is why the first example of the smoke and the fire has been given. Even in a light smoke, you can see the fire, but not in its full brilliance. That is why the Kama Rupa is mentioned in such a way. And Krishna says that Prajahi in the 41st verse. Destroy Kama, one must be able to recognize all rupas of Kama. And then only one can destroy it. Hey Arjuna, Tushpurena na kadapi purayate. That which is never filled, that which cannot be satisfied. So, Mahasana and Dushpurena is used in the same meaning here. Perpetually unsatisfied. Analena is Kama is now equated to the fire. The fire, ever hungry fire. That alam, analam is the word from where the word fire has been derived at. Just as the fire is never satiated, therefore fire is said the one which is never satiated. The word anala is the name for fire, but that word anala is also ana plus ala. Not enough. Alam means enough. Analam means not enough. So the name of the fire that emphasizes insatiable hunger of the fuel is the word which is anala here used by that. To indicate Kama is a fire, not merely the smoke that covers fire. Shankaracharya explained that the double fire imagery, the fire covered by the smoke as Kama itself, as a complete reversal in the Upameya of 38, where Jnana was the fire and Kama is the smoke. Now Kama itself is called a fire. So look at that. Example said, fire covered by smoke. Now the fire itself is called a Kama here. Upameya. So the reversal. The insatiable fire. This reversal reveals the deeper truth. Kama's consuming power is the most dangerous quality and not merely its concealing function. So, the knowledge of a Jnanin is covered. The Jnanin here is not a Tattvavit who has fully realized Atman and in whom Kama is permanently dissolved. For a Tattvavit, Jnana cannot be covered since Aparoksha it is Aparoksha for him, immediate and direct. Rather, a Jnanin here means Viveki. One who has Viveka and Mumukshutva, but has not yet attained the Aparoksha Jnana. This person's Paroksha Jnana, that is mediate and inferential knowledge of Atman, is what Kama covers. Shankaracharya says that this is Krishna's warning that Kama is most dangerous. To the serious sadhaka, the enemy intensifies its attack on to those closest to defeating it. Nitya Vairinaha. Shankaracharya distinguishes Nitya Vairin in two forms. Agantuka Vairin, accidental enemy arising from a specific conflict. But there are other Vairis, natural enemies, Swabhavika Vairin, like the snake and the mongoose. They are Nitya Vairis. Kama is a Nitya Vairin, perpetual enemy, in a deeper sense than either. It is the Swarupa Vairin, the enemy that is inherent to the Jiva's samsaric condition itself, rooted in Anadi Avidya. It cannot be avoided. It cannot be outlasted. It cannot be negotiated with. It can only be destroyed through Atma Jnana. Therefore, Shankaracharya says, Nityata as also indicating that karma is present in every birth, not something acquired in this life alone that can be abandoned, but Anadi Samskara that accompanies the jiva through the beginningless samsara. Kama Rupena is, for Shankaracharya, a warning about variable nature of karma that makes it difficult to combat. Shankaracharya lists several rupas, forms of karma takes. Vishaya Kama, desire on sense objects. Putra Kama, desire for children. Vitta Kama, desire for wealth. Swarga Kama, desire for heaven. Moksha Kama, desire for liberation. Shankaracharya reads as still form, is this also a still form of karma at a preparatory level. The subtlest of all jitnyasa, kama, is the desire for knowledge itself. When tinged with ego, the very kama represents itself in the form of that appears legitimate, even virtuous, making sadhaka unable to recognize it as its enemy. This is the practical implication that the sadhaka must develop sukshma viveka, subtle discrimination, to recognize karma in all its disguises. Sorry. Dushpuranena alanena completes the picture with the most practically important observation, the insatiability of karma. And that is where Dharma Shastra is quoted by, Manusmriti is quoted by Shankaracharya in the commentary. Najadu kama kama anupama bhogena samyati aivisha krishnenavrutam eva bhuya iva abhivirdhate. The desire is never appeased by enjoying objects. Like fire fed with butter, it only grows large. The very butter poured to satisfy fire makes it burn more intensely. This is the structural reason why karma is nityavairin. It cannot be appeased by any satisfaction other than knowledge. Only solution is not satisfaction but jnana. Not giving in to karma what it wants, but by dissolving the very avidya that produces karma in the first place. Shankaracharya says that dushpuranena alanena as the strongest possible motivation for jnana marga. Since karma can never be satisfied, the bhoga marga or the path of satisfaction or enjoyment is constitutively incapable of producing peace, shanti. Only jnana, which reveals Atman as the Purana, that requires nothing external, dissolves the karma permanently. Avrutam etena jnanam. The knowledge is covered by this. Jnaninaha nityavairinaha. It is the eternal enemy of the wise. By recognizing desire leading to suffering, it obstructs knowledge. Therefore, such a person regards this karma as a perpetual enemy. Jnani hi janati anena aham anarthe prayuktaha iti purvameva. For the wise person knows beforehand, by this I am driven to misfortune. The awareness of the seeker sees the pattern. Desire arises, suffering follows. Thus he recognizes the danger early enough. Dukhi cha bhavati nityameva. And he continuously suffers because of it. Therefore produces restlessness, dissatisfaction, frustration, Therefore, the wise person experiences its harmful natures directly. Natu murkasya, but not by an ignorant person. Sahi kamam trishnakale mitramiva pasyan. So such a person who is in delusion sees desire at the time of craving as though it's a friend. Desire will bring happiness. Fulfilling it will solve his problems. Thus the desire appears to be helpful companion for a ignorant person. Tat karyam dukke praptan na tapte janati. But when the suffering produces by it arrives, he realizes Krishnaya aham dukkitam apaditaha iti. Through the craving I have brought misery upon myself. The recognition comes after the damage is done. Therefore the ignorant person learns too late. Ataha jnanina eva nityavairi. Therefore it is truly the eternal enemy of the wise. Because the wise person recognizes desire's destructive nature immediately and works constantly. He treats it as a constant adversary. Kim rupena, kama rupena, in the form of desire itself. Dushpurena, insatiable nature of it. Analena, like a fire. Na ayam, na asya alam praptihi vidyate. It never reaches a point of satisfaction. Desire lacks natural limit, thus perpetuates endless dissatisfaction. Kim adhisthanaha punakamaha. But where does this desire reside? Jnatehi shastradhisthane sukhena nirbahanam kartum shakyate. Or because when the seat of enemy is known, it can be easily removed. A military analogy used by Shankaracharya in the commentary is that this no enemy's position known can be destroyed. Therefore, the verse number 40 will answer that the senses, mind, intellect are said to be the seat for the psychological structure of desire. We will take the verse number 40 tomorrow. 40 to 41. 40, I think. Yeah. 43. Right. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you. Dhanyawad.
Yes, thank you very much, Bindoji. I've opened the chat and hand raising. If there are any follow-up questions, which I'm sure there are many, but please feel free to come up and ask the questions. So let me ask a question, Bindoji. The desire to get rid of desire, right?
It is a beginning.
Yes. So can you address that aspect from the Kama Krodha?
So we saw that there are three nature of desires: Sattvic, Rajasic and Tamasic. Tamasic people will never know it is a desire. Even to get out of desire will not be there for them. The Rajasic people are people who think that the satisfaction is in the objects for the sense organs. Rajoguna Samudbhava, that we have told that. So they think it is in action and satisfaction they are fulfilling. Keep on doing that. That is the word Shankaracharya brought in all the different type of kamas which are not known. Then comes the Sattvic nature of people who are not aware that the good things which are they doing, like doing dharma, bhakti, and taking care of servicing people, all those things, even on the Shastravasana, for learning more about the Atman, the Upanishad after Upanishad and books after books, they keep on studying. They don't realize that it is a karma which is working in them. But the moment they realize that it is the karma which is the reason why I am keeping on doing it, that is the time when they can work towards jnana, because the only thing karma can never be put out by karma or feeding it. They realize, the sattvic people who are into the final thing, they know that Atma Jnana is the only jnana which can put an end to what you call the karma in the subtlest forms. That is the time when the person becomes a total vairagi, total detachment to any activity at all, because he knows that activity is masquerading as a good thing, or even for spiritual path. Therefore, their only thing will be to acquire the Atma Jnana, for which Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana are the only way. No activity other than that will be able to, eradicate the desire for that action. The Shravana develops into Manana, and Manana will develop into Atma Jnana by Nididhyasana method. That process, the action finds its own natural end by attaining the Atma Jnana. But doing dharma, bhakti, or, studying the Vedas and the Upanishads and the Granthas, none of them will take you unless you are doing the Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana aspect of it. The only way you can get out of this clutch of subtle forms of karma is by Atma Jnana.
Thank you very much, Binduji. I think Rajendra is coming. Greetings, Rajendra.
Yes. Hi, Prakashji. Hello, Binduji.
Hi, Rajendra.
It's like I feel this, a way to unpack the karma could be, often it's seen as action, but I think what you're trying to say is also the feedback loops, the ripples that ripple backwards. And how I feel you're saying is like understanding how things ripple back is like, the process of knowledge acquisition. Am I understanding that correctly?
Rajendra, it is ripples coming back is a good analogy which you are saying. But what happens is that he finds happiness in that itself. The feedback which is coming, he feels he is doing the right thing towards spiritual path. But the statement from Krishna, which is now commented by Shankaracharya, very categorically says that Atma Jnana is the only one. Because everything else is rooted in the Anadi Avidya, or the beginningless ignorance that I am the physical body, mind, intellect. Where as long as that, even if you are doing the dharma, devotion, or studies of scriptures, or doing social service, all of them, you have the individuality, ego, and the body-mind complex as you in the picture. That is the reason why Krishna here is saying that the only way, Nityavairi, when he says is that The Nitya Vairi is because the eternal ignorance with which we feel that we are the body, mind, intellect, and the doership and enjoyership of that actions, however pure it may be, is a masquerading of the karma in the purer form. But it is still karma because you have not got out of the doership and enjoyership. Therefore, you need to know that only Atmajnana is the ultimate annihilator of karma or the desire.
Yes, that's clear. Well, practically, let's say, the Prime Minister Prime Minister Modi would be Arjuna today, and in light of a lot of explosions around the world, so how would he act? What are your thoughts, Bindoji? And that's my last question.
He's saying that if we have to the explosions have to be put on end not by exploding further explosion. It is like karma. The only for this thing is dialogue. That is what he is doing as an Arjuna. He is saying that sit down across and dialogue and finish it off. That's the only way you can end the war. Otherwise, there is never will there be an end to war.
Well, thank you, Bindoji. I will allow Jess G to...
Namaste, Jesse. Welcome today. I expected yesterday you will be able to make it, but you could not.
Yes, I tried a couple times. Yes, namaste, Binduji and Prakash.
Namaste.
And everyone. What beautiful lessons today. For me, it is so reassuring, deeply reassuring, that the cycle of kama, krodha, and papam can be dissolved, and yet are so subtle and so powerful at the same time. So give respect where respect is due, is what I say. But my question, it relates to verse 35. And I'm going to read it. It's only a couple of sentences, and then I'll ask my question. 35.
Yes.
It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily, than another's duties perfectly. Destruction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duties, for to follow another's path is dangerous. Well, in my world and in my experience in my life, I have trained myself to take action to whatever is in front of me, as long as the action is ethical and hopefully doesn't hurt anyone, and not only that, but perhaps might be compassionate and beneficial to others. And so, for instance, whether it's menial labor or dirty labor or service, or whether it's leadership in business or political roles, I am the same no matter what is in front of me. I do not change. I am consistent in who I am and my emotions and my countenance and my forbearance. I am the same. And so if I am the same with things that come in front of me, the big curiosity for me, which sounds incredibly naive on my part, but it's how do I tell? What is someone else's dharma? What is the paradharma of someone else versus what comes in front of me? And I like the saying in English, it says, well, either it's my business, your business, or God's business. But I'm just wondering, I'd never thought about, what are the questions that might I be in inquiry about to make sure that I am not stepping on the toes or doing paramadharma for someone else? Thank you. That's my question.
You see, the easiest way today in our modern scenario is that when we fail in an action or when we fall short of our performance, rest assured that is not our job to do that. It's not our business to have entered into that. Learning from that, never to try that route again, will be the suggestion given by this verse. Today it is not like that Krishna and Arjuna and all those picture is not there today. Today it is, as you rightly said, what comes in front of us, we will be obliged to take on as our duty to perform, as long as it is ethical and morally correct. We keep that in mind and we perform that. But even when we are performing that, there will be places where we are falling short or failing. That route you should identify yourself as paradharma, as not your duty, but it should have been not your job to enter into that, because you did not know the whole picture and therefore you entered, and then the shortcomings are caused by you. That should be an eye-opener for us in our day-to-day life. Even if you are advising leadership and all those things, you don't feel yourself capable enough to stand as a politician, to stand for an election now, as of now, and then, take on somebody who is already popular and is doing his job. That is where you are trying to do somebody else's job. But if you think that you have all the potential and you are the purpose of, you have confidence in yourself that you can defeat the present person who is sitting and occupying the chair, even in politics, then you take it on. But you should be 100% sure that you will be able to win it. But if you think that you will not be able to, that is your swabhava is telling you that is not your job. Or your nature is telling you, it is no, don't attempt, just see, you may not win. So that doubt which it comes in our mind itself is an indication towards us. Our nature doesn't want to get messed up with a thing which we are not confident enough to take on.
That is exceedingly helpful. So it's really being super realistic and very practical about what our skills, talents, and capacities are before we step into something and before we become entangled in a mess that we may not be able to extricate ourselves from easily. Thank you, Bindoji. That was very, very perfect, and I'm smiling because of the recognition. Thank you. Much love.
Thank you, Jess. Okay, Prakash, we can meet tomorrow.
Sure, Bindoji. So thank you everyone for coming. Tomorrow we meet again at 8:30 p.m. IST, and so that's Friday. And then following will be an Advaita open discussion on Sunday at 8:30 p.m. IST. So please do the manana, and you see the continuation of what Bindoji is offering here from what is called as a total reset. So as always, thank you very much, Bindoji. Over to you to close the room.
Thank you, Prakash. Thank you, Rajinder. Thank you, Jesse, for your questions. And thank you all for listening. We'll continue to the remaining, and we should be able to close the third chapter tomorrow, so that Monday onwards we can go to the fourth chapter. Thank you. Hari Om. Good night.
Hari Om. Good night.